In episode 374 of GI Joburg, we ponder what could have been if GI Joe had existed in 1995. My name is Stephen. I'm joined by Paul.
I'm just recovering from the intro explosion. Hello, everybody. Hello, Steve. And who else is with us this evening?
One wild Roberto.
Hello. The inspiration it caught Paul off guard. He's never experienced it before. Brand
Well, we're going to be rocking the 90s, baby. So it's going to be explosions of neon and stripes and angles and spots and plucky teens.
Oh my God, teenagers.
If there's trouble, Neon Joes are there.
Or maybe not.
Neon
I don't
Joes.
know. The premise of this episode is going to be a two-parter, basically. We're going to talk a little bit about what Hasbro had in store for 1995, something that I don't think we've ever spoken about on GI Joburg. And
I didn't even know they had a plan.
Ooh, exciting. I look forward to seeing your reactions then. And then we're going to discuss our own kind of projections, like where Hasbro could have gone with the line, where we would have liked them to go, maybe a bit of wishful thinking in there if GI Joe had seen another year or another couple of years. Maybe this would have been the shot in the arm that kept GI Joe going.
Can you imagine?
Let's remedy the situation of a dead GI Joe line.
Let's fix it. Let's make it awesome.
So, as always, we're indebted to 3D Joes for a lot. I'm going to bring up their cancelled page. So, stuff that potentially could have happened in 1995 because
you're going to share that with the class,
extensively.
Oh, cool. Yes.
Oh, the garbage truck went up. Can you go?
Garbage day.
Well,
it's
we missed it this time.
The garbage. You will definitely see it next time, Elliot. It's going to be so
Elliot's
cool.
going to go see it. All right. It's garbage truck time at the Jabba household. It's a very important time of the week.
Well, of course.
In 1995, we would have seen a lot more sub-teams leaning into the space elements, the Star Brigade stuff. But there would still be a main line called the Battle Corps Rangers.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, look at that Baroness.
What was that, Paul?
It's obviously building on... Oh, look at that Baroness, Paul said.
Yeah.
Building on what they'd been doing for the last couple of years. Like the main line, at least from 93 onwards, was called the Battle Corps.
I can't get behind this toy, man. Like, this looks like somebody's mom getting ready for Tybo. It freaks me out. Like, it's weird.
Oh my goodness. Well,
I don't know what it is.
It's not a completed thing. I mean, this is probably still a prototype.
The two-up paint master of what would have been the Battle Corps Rangers Baroness, and yeah, she does look kind of ninja-esque. Perhaps the thinking was, let's make a Baroness that can stand toe-to-toe with Ninja Force Scarlet. But the main thrust of the Battle Corps Rangers line was to make things a little bit more realistic again.
Whoa, it's Jesse Ventura.
It does look like Jesse Ventura. This, I think, is Bazooka or Leatherneck. It's probably Leatherneck.
Probably the Leatherneck.
But this is some concept art for what would have been that series. We have some vehicles, like the Battle Corps Rangers Vortex. This is a sort of a hover.
I want to go outside.
Elliot wants to go outside.
Pick up the bed.
Can you ask Mommy?
Where's Mommy?
She's in bed.
I want to go with you.
I have some work to do, my boy. I'm sorry.
Wait, I want to.
Okay.
We understand.
All right. Guys, can you drive? It'll be 3D Joe's cancelled. And it's all yours. Take it away, boys. It's fascinating little dive into what could have been 1995.
Interesting. What was next? Oh my goodness. What was the new thing that would come along? I mean, so
Battle Corps... I find the same catalog that Stephen had.
Well, I mean, this is a fantastic resource, though. I mean, we hop on about it, and thankfully, I mean, I've seen a lot of comments. People were like, "Wow, I never knew 3D Joes existed." And this is a section of the website that I never knew existed. Cancelled figures that we might have seen in the future. And what a great resource to have. If I'd known about this, I would have thought about this a little bit harder, other than just imagining what I wanted to see from 1995.
Yeah, I was okay. In all fairness, I did exactly that because
Yeah. Well, you're a creative dude. Tap into your imagination. Of course, you want to be able to do that. That's your first port of call.
Yeah, it's my first port of call. Exactly. I can't find this cancelled thing that Stephen is talking about.
Oh my goodness, guys! This is the best radio you will ever get.
Oh, there it is.
Is me and Paul.
So while Rob and I are doing tech support, I do want to make a mention. So when we were talking 85's catalog, we mentioned the TTBP and how it never got reprinted. And one of our frequent listeners, Moonlight, he actually commented on how there were plans for them to do a whale and a TTBP, and I'm going to share that with everybody now, where you actually will see a pre-production, a cancelled, should I say, whale,
reimagining of the whale, but later on in the line.
So
wow, I'm loving this little tangent we're going on here.
Yeah, so you can check here, like they had a 1995 Battle Corps Ranger Sea Wolf, formerly the killer whale. So that was supposed to be a thing.
Okay, so we would have gotten the whale again in 95.
Yeah,
interesting.
We would have.
I wonder what the colors.
We were robbed. From the artwork that I've seen of it, it was meant to be like kind of a gray, like
yeah, and not bombastic, but more kind of down to earth, I guess.
Yeah, it would have been great, and I imagine it. I don't want to like speculate too much because there was an image, and then there was also meant to be the TTBP, which was also like a dark gray, and the artwork has it set in that kind of a stormy ocean kind of setting. I
wonder if that's what it's actually meant to be, dark gray, or if that was just the colors of the
in the artwork
model.
Well, they had art done for it, so like these things were ready to roll, kind of thing. Like they had a production schedule for it, so they probably just canceled it. So I don't know. I don't want to like. It's difficult for us to speculate on why they decided to jump away from that. But on my pop-up's happening. Oh, okay.
No, I'll tell you particular attention. I'm back. Hello. To the fact that, I mean, all of this stuff is very fascinating, and it's nice that we've got a grey whale called the sea wolf. It's looking very realistic. That's what pushes Battle Corps Rangers into more realistic terrain for me. But the more fanciful stuff is what gets my attention. And I'm not just talking about the Ninja Commandos with Ninja Force Road Pig, basically. Wow.
I could do with a Ninja Force Road Pig in my life.
I bet you could.
Of course you could.
The most fascinating thing to me out of this was what were called the replicators. Basically, we have Snake Eyes, Duke, and Sci-fi, and they've got, unfortunately, T-crotch articulation, so just straight up and down swivels. But that's because these aren't O-ring figures. They have got in their chest cavities aliens. They were playing host to like an alien symbiote. I don't know. There's something inside of them.
Okay,
like
so
Power
imagine,
Rangers.
yeah, like the head would flip in, and then the other head would flip out.
Oh my god, that looks
very good.
It's very much like the Power Rangers figures. So obviously they were leaning heavily. Well, from what we've discussed so far, realism, Space Brigade, toy features, it feels like the line really was. It had no identity at this point. At least what? Well, I mean,
so it was a blank canvas.
It was pulling itself in so many different directions. You know, like let's re-embrace realism, because obviously in '94 we did get some of the 30th anniversary figures, which are celebrating the original GI Joe. So those were very realistic. But yeah, then they're kind of still expanding further into space and science fiction, and I suppose the experimentation of the Ninja Force battle features. That wasn't the end of it. They were kind of experimenting with other things, like with these replicator figures.
On screen now we have Cobra Commander, Destro, and Gung Ho with like a helmet that predates the Master Chief, but is absolutely like a Halo helmet.
Very much
Wow.
Master Chief. And that
wonder
Cobra
if
Commander looks
some-
like once was a man.
Yes, he's got a
A
lot of
man.
muscles. He's got like sort of ribbing along his side.
Looks
Like
very snake-like. Yeah.
what it looks like his Cobra Law, citizen of Cobra Law. Well, no, his post sort of mutation. Maybe the
Aw.
toy line was leaning into Cobra Law again. And it makes sense because like these are like human figures that are morphing with some kind of alien feature. The write-up said that the replicators would kind of be the GI Joe host bodies, but it would take on the characters of these additional characters, these alien characters that are living inside of them. So all of a sudden, Duke and Snake Eyes
They're like
aren't
gold.
acting like Duke or Snake Eyes.
Yes, I was about to say, yeah, they're like gold from Stargate.
Stargate.
Yeah.
On that picture that you
There'd be
had
a second
earlier with
season of Manimals, and these look fascinating.
Manimals.
They all have like also morphing features, heads that pop off. They sort of have
Ridiculous.
a closed
Oh my word, that
look
that
and an
insect
open
thing.
look.
That is so clever. The way that
Does it
chest
remind
opens
you
up.
of Fright Features by
From Ghostbusters.
Ghostbusters?
Yeah.
Like a toilet that becomes a monster. Well, this is just basically
I was thinking of him exactly now. What is it? Feel for Flash or something like that.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh man, I'm down with this kind of chud appeal for for GI Joe.
Well, they're glorious toys, but they're not GI Joes, right?
They're
Yeah,
not.
Though,
They're not.
looking at this guy on screen currently, whatever his name, Mantizoid, with his closed and open look, he does remind me of, and I'm going to tip my hand, like a Power Rangers baddie. Sort of monster of
Like
the week.
Nasty Knight.
Make my monster grow! So there's some of that juice floating around the Hasbro offices of 1994. Definitely.
Yeah, they were definitely watching.
Yes.
But this
Yo,
definitely
the
does.
acid was cheap then, hey?
Big raves.
It definitely does. Yeah, this all feeds into what I was just saying. It feels like it's a line that has lost its identity at this point. They were just throwing anything that they hoped would stick on the wall and just calling it GI Joe. When all of these things were they're all cool ideas, but they're not at their core GI Joe. Like these could have all been their own lines. Exploring completely new things.
Manimals definitely looks like a GI Joe trying to reach into the gross toys culture that was created by things like the Aliens toy line. Because the Aliens toy line had all the xenomorphs, and then they had like they're like very nasty little toy features, and they were quite scary to a degree. So it definitely feels like GI Joe was trying to cash in on that popularity. That kind, or at least Hasbro was thinking that they could bring that into GI Joe to kind of push it forward. Now, an issue like this is kind of an issue I have with 90s products, and we live and learn. I mean, this is why I've got this perspective, because we're like 30 years in the future now from it all, but I think if Hasbro was smart enough to realize that their fan base was growing up, and then decided to grow the toys up and their stories with their fan base, it would have really benefited them. And it took American media a long time, or should I say mass media in America, a long time to kind of catch on to that idea. And I think that's the downfall of the 90s GI Joes, or of GI Joes in the 90s.
Although at the
that's
same
why
time,
they felt the shit.
Well, I mean, how much more real can you get than an army team? I mean, it kind of feels like it was a long time coming. They kind of like not following their audience growing up. They were actually kind of going anywhere but growing with their audiences.
Well, they're trying to create new audiences. The line would die if it wasn't pulling in the kids of the time. And people love to say that all the sub teams and like being a sort of a trend follower is what killed GI Joe, which is what brought about the end. I would counter that by saying if GI Joe didn't try and do Toxic Crusaders with the Eco Warriors, or didn't try and do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with the Ninja Force, the line might have died even quicker.
Yeah.
Because at least for a certain sect of the fandom, like myself, I would sooner buy a Ninja Force GI Joe than buy a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I didn't want to shop outside of my chosen scale and chosen toy line. So if I could play those tropes within Joe, that's first prize. So I was buying up GI Joe and Eco Warriors and Star Brigade like nobody's business.
Yeah, for sure. That's the
likewise.
thing. We leaned into it.
Likewise, but what I'm saying is that the voice that Hasbro used to communicate to its customer was still like trying to do all of these things, which also, like, Steve, I'm with you there. I'm very much for like Hasbro doing like the Ninja Force and all that kind of stuff. I just think that they started talking down to their audience as opposed to talking to their audience, because that's kind of what made GI Joe good in the first place, was they weren't speaking down to you. I mean, and we joke about it, and we rip off the file cards a lot. You know, we read them and we like they ultra ridiculous, because it's a 90s thing. They're like absolutely ridiculous, and we laugh at that shit. And it's a company talking down to its customers, and I think that's the problem. I think if they just stopped handling their customers, treating their customers like kids, and treated them as like young adults or kids that are going to become grown-ups one day, like the earlier stuff did, I think the line might have survived a lot longer in the 90s and maybe could have matured differently.
It would have been more cherished by like retrospective GI Joe fans now, because I mean the clearest example to illustrate your point, Paul, is the dropping of suspension of disbelief in the blueprints. So whereas it used to like have all the sort of technical detail about what kind of missile this is, in the 90s the blueprint actually just has the goal to just say spring-loaded missile launcher that fires. Water squirting feature, shoots over 40 feet or whatever. Like actually just like putting advertising copy in my sacred
I suppose that's
blueprint.
the crazy thing, that the line itself did start out exceptionally mature. You know, like it really did take itself seriously, and it took the kids seriously. It kind of created a very realistic world for itself, and I think that's what people latched onto. And even
the 1995 stuff looks like very attractive toys.
They look like fun.
Pictured right now is War Dog. It would have been in the Star Brigade, and it's a sort of a crazy
jumping the shark moment.
Alien animal companion, like a gun.
It's a Dino Rider.
It's a Dino Rider, totally. Well done. Oh, I've removed Paul when I went to remove his tab. So GI Joe did actually enjoy some retail life in 1995. Can you guys remember at all?
Or for us,
we were behind though.
We were behind, but we were getting those Shadow Ninjas in 95, and then like that. Is it 95 and 96? We started seeing those like small versions of the military stuff.
I don't know if small is the right word, but I think you might be forgetting about Sergeant Savage and his Screaming Eagles.
Yes, we did get those.
The anachronistic battle against General Blitz. This was basically G.I. Joe does Captain America.
World War II.
Yeah.
Yes. And World War II.
They released one episode of a cartoon on VHS, included with one of the Sergeant Savage figures. And basically it tells the story of like G.I. Joe uncovering this legendary soldier who'd been kind of cryo-frozen towards the end of World War II. They bring him into the now because there's this crazy doctor dude who they need to stop, who actually turns out to be General Blitz. He's somehow managed to escape the Reaper and has come back.
I got him.
You do? Yeah, I think I remember seeing it at your place. He decided that the 90s was the time to strike and reinstate whatever Reich he could cobble together. Anyway, so they bring back a World War II hero to defeat a World War II villain.
How unusual.
And miraculously, he's able to get a whole bunch of his old war buddies together.
Oh, wow.
Wait, no, hang on. I'm misremembering. Maybe they're actually Joe's. Oh, no, they're... he does a sort of a Dirty Dozen thing. So he's a World War II soldier, and he plucks his group from, like, I think, military prisons. So these are bad boys.
Okay.
That's right.
This is fascinating. So they really were trying almost anything in 94 into 95 to kind of recapture people's interest, kind of expanding into multiple genres, into multiple different types of toys.
This line was interesting. This figure that Steven's looking at now, which is the release of Sergeant Savage with the cryo tube, and he's got like a water gun type thing. So I have this one.
Oh, you
and
do?
Yeah, and it was quite like you filled the cryo chamber with water and you stuck it in the freezer, then you had him in ice, like, kind of vibe.
So essentially, this is the quintessential Sergeant Savage. This is like the basic one. Nice.
But jokes aside,
I don't remember seeing any of these.
Yeah,
I saw them all,
shop.
and I avoided them like the plague. When I got up close to them and saw that they were too big, that was it. That was the death knell for me. I saw GI Joe, and I got excited. I saw the Andy Kubert art, and I got excited. And then I put them next to the figure that I had in my pocket at the time, and I was like, no, I can't play with these Hulks.
So I mean,
I was just happy to see GI Joe on a box. Sorry,
was those like 6-inch figures, or were they sized more to like modern GI Joes?
They're 4-inch.
The modern era Joes. Oh, okay.
They're actually a little bit bigger they're like 4.3 inches or something like that.
Well, to put it in perspective, towards the end of the modern era line, there was a Leatherneck figure and a Gung Ho figure. They're sort of slightly bigger than. No, I don't say slightly. They were oversized. I mean, there was a scale creep toward the end of the modern era anyway. So figures were bigger than they were.
Yeah, they were starting to get way tall.
But that Leatherneck and Gung Ho buck is bigger than a Sergeant Savage figure. Yeah, so they were overtaken. Okay. But like at the time, putting an O-ring figure next to these guys, they looked freakishly large.
Yeah, then obviously they also wouldn't play like the same problem with the modern era figures. They wouldn't play well with the established vehicles that everyone owned.
Yes, and there were vehicles produced for Sergeant Savage. Particularly the P-40 Warhawk is an attractive buy. And unfortunately, Yojo.com doesn't have a picture of the toy, but it's got that unfortunate melody of like a cockpit that's sized way too large. Like there's a tightness to a GI Joe aircraft cockpit, apart from the X-30, where a figure isn't going to rattle around in there.
Yeah.
But the Warhawk, yeah, it's too big for an O-ring figure to look
These
good.
These feel almost like knockoffs. They feel like the knockoff lines that we see, in toy shops. The kind of like Chinese knockoffs, more than there are actual.
I said Andy Kubert art. It's Big Daddy Joe Kubert.
It's the Big Daddy,
wow.
Hence the very authentic WW2 feel to the artwork.
The outstanding inking.
But I get your point, Rob. They do feel off-brand because it's taking the GI Joe furniture and rejigging it and giving it this like scratchy Sergeant Savage. It's a weird thing because it's so 90s and yet it's so 1940s. And they languished on pegs because they weren't quite GI Joe, a real American hero, and they had their own continuity, which was not necessarily well advertised or communicated. It's that one VHS. It didn't have a cartoon that was in daily rotation.
Yeah, if you didn't get a hold of that, you had no idea what was going on. It's like,
but it absolutely was part of ARA. Like the cartoon has General Hawk in it. It has Lady J in it. This is Hawk's initiative to deal with an arising situation, which steps outside, I guess, of like GI Joe. And Sergeant Savage enjoyed life in GI Joe Extreme, which followed towards the end of 1995.
Yeah, that's wild. I wonder if they would have actually then remade the toys as actual GI Joes, or would they have just kind of kept them in their own scaling?
I guess this was a Splinter idea. So when GI Joe ARA was being shuttered, someone was like, "Can we push out these things? This time travel storyline?"
We had this idea. Can we just slap the GI Joe label on this? And grab the established fan base.
Yeah.
I think. Hasbro was doing a lot of like Hail Mary plays back then. You know, GI Joe Extreme, Sergeant Savage, X-Men had just like sort of kicked off on TV, and I think a lot of these guys at the time, and this is like again, I'm just coming back to a point I was making earlier. X-Men didn't do well because it was mutants. X-Men did well because it was like, as far as kids go, as far as a kids cartoon goes, it felt pretty like R-rated, you know, like it had that like, I'm watching a grown-up cartoon kind of vibe.
Yeah, it took itself seriously. Yeah, it's the same. Like, I mean, most people would say the original Batman animated series is brilliant because it takes itself seriously too.
Exactly.
You know, like there is a maturity to it. They respect.
There we go.
This is not a Sergeant Savage figure. This is an X-Men Iceman figure that I'm holding up to the camera. But I think that was the sort of the scale difference between.
But then
they were much bigger, yeah, and they were probably a response to the fact that other toy lines were getting bigger and GI Joe was getting dwarfed. That's why Sergeant Savage does not
match the scaling.
I mean, the irony now is, as a Joe collector, I would be all over that Sergeant Savage stuff if I could play with it alongside my O-ring figures.
Yeah, I think that's just
the same thing with GI Joe Extreme. GI Joe Extreme, the pre-posed, like, yucky 90s stamp that's all over that stuff. If they're just stuck with the old furniture, with the old construction of an O-ring figure, those designs would be so rad. So 90s, but, like, so much fun to mix in with the classic Joe.
It would be great to explore something different, yeah.
I'd love to ask Mr. Bazigian what happened with Sergeant, with the Sergeant Savage line, because and also just something to like make mention of here. I'm just going to share my screen.
Please do.
So we kind of hit this line or this era in South Africa as well, where we were getting the 12-inch sort of revival of the original GI Joe. That was coming out, and they were coming out in like different military stations.
I mean, as I said, 94, they did do, you know, raw versions of, you know, as a 30th anniversary celebration of the 12.
That's right, line. Yeah. But then they did these as well. Like when you went to like, yeah. So I remember going into Reggie's and them having a whole bunch of uniforms and gear for this scale of GI Joe. And I never actually saw the GI Joes, at least in my Reggie's, but I know that one or two of them did come to South Africa. That's having wild. Said that, though, that is wild. So, like, having said that, I would like all of our listeners and viewers right now to just take a moment and just look around you right now and look at the classified line and look at what figures have been coming out in the classified line, which is, you know, like Mr. Soldier, Mr. like Navy SEALs, Mr. Diver, Mr. Fireman. We're kind of there now. It's like we're in like 90s phase 2 now. So I wonder if we're going to see a repeat of past mistakes with Hasbro. Anyway, that said, I've just we are kind of there now, because now they're going, oh.
Well, I mean, I was going to say as well, I mean, it took them a while, but they finally did upscale GI Joe, and it became successful. I mean, classified is in line with the general scaling of most action figures these days, and it's definitely doing gangbusters, you know.
And chumps like me are getting very excited for Super 7 because of the retro O-ring of it, and I'm also, by the way, not ignorant of the predicament I find myself in. I am the older guy now buying toys that remind me of my youth.
That's here we are. Built off these days, nostalgia.
Yep. So there's that. So I think, Steve, unless there's anything else you want to say about this stuff, I do feel like there's a gap for us to kind of jump in and go, what would we have liked to have seen in 1995, like officially? Like what would we like to contribute
officially
to GI Joe in 1995?
Fans wanted to have seen in 95. Yeah.
I want to see this stuff that Paul's putting on screen. He's leaning on the replicators artwork. So to just remind everyone, replicators are alien creatures living inside of the chests of the Joes and Cobras. Something big happened in the mid-90s that eclipsed, I'd say, even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. They were kind of on their way out by the time 5 plucky teens, empowered by, what were they? Zords? I don't know.
By the Power Coins, by Zordon.
Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the sort of the Western reception of the Super Sentai phenomenon was huge. Irresistible. It was everywhere. We were playing it in the streets, in back gardens. Everyone wanted to be the Green Ranger. Wow. I think I was the oldest, so I got it by default. But I could see the envy in everyone else's eyes. Yeah, Dragon Zord power now. And GI Joe, being the trend follower that it was toward the end of the line, would have had no problem doing exactly that. Sort of monster of the week stuff, making Joes and Cobras into monsters. Well, the Cobras into monsters and the Joes into a sort of an almost superhuman team to fight them.
Yeah,
but what could have been really cool is if they designed a bunch of sort of mid-sized vehicles to step in as the Zords. I mean, the highlight of any Power Rangers episode for me was the stock footage of like all the Zords coming together and forming the Megazord.
This is the best moment.
And then you'd have the sort of man in suit robot cosplay fighting over like a miniature cityscape. I mean, that was just glorious.
So much love. Loved it so much.
Didn't care much for like the hijinks of the teens at, was it Ridgemont High? I don't know.
Angel Grove.
Angel Grove. Jeez.
Wow.
I watched all of this last year with my son and haven't subsequently
gone back.
But it's a trip, man, to think how much time we spend watching that show. Anyway.
Yeah, sure. Enough that we wanted to own a lot of the toys. Okay, so you feel like you would want to lean more into the Power Rangers themes. And
I'm just having fun with the concept. And I was spitballing this with Ben from Chasing Joe last night. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that having a sort of a young squad of Joes, sort of new recruits, the GI Joe Academy, like lean into showcasing the kids, because, and he makes a good point, in the 90s we wanted to see the kids doing this for themselves, whereas in the 80s we probably were more keen to see professional soldier men and women fighting for our country's freedom. In the 90s it was all about like us being empowered.
Captain Planet, Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
Yeah, it's more like get the kids involved. Really,
and maybe that's where GI Joe missed a step by not putting its audience in the hero's seat. And that was something that like more successful lines in the 90s did, and did without any shame or irony. Power Rangers is the perfect example. It's like, this is aspirational for you guys. These could be the seniors in your own school.
You could be these guys.
Yeah.
So GI Joe should have done that too. You could be running around with a gun, killing terrorists.
I mean, I hate
technically GI Joe was doing that, dude, in the comic books, man. America's Army. Yeah, you can be like
well, I'm reminded of issue 1
in all the comic books. Used to be like, you could be a GI Joe.
Oh, you're talking about Steel Brigade?
No, I'm talking about real life. They had recruitment ads in comic books and games magazines for America's Army.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's how they were trying to get you to like, hey kid, you can be in the army.
Put a rifle in your hands. Okay, jeez.
Yeah.
Look, it's an idea that I absolutely loathe now, but it's one that I could so easily see, GI Joe going in that direction.
Yeah, grabbing your attention as a kid, because I think often we do kind of want to adult the ideas that we put into these things. But like,
you run the risk of making it too adult and the line dying with us old timers. I mean, this is the constant struggle to recapture the youth and show them that GI Joe can be a fun and exciting brand to play in. Anyway,
how would you just de-age the entire crew? Dr. Mindbender did some sort of weird experiment, and suddenly all of GI Joe is like kids now.
Gray hairs and growing pains.
Yeah. So Steve's thinking like a Red Dawn meets Tokusatsu vibe.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I
Hey,
kind
why
of
not?
like the idea of a Red Dawn style GI Joe show, like the kids of the GI Joes, like Flint and Lady J's kid, Scarlet and Snake Eyes' kid, and like them like going on adventures and stuff.
Marissa. I thought
Yes,
the
Marissa
cogs were turning in my
Fairborn,
head,
yeah.
but Marissa Fairborn got there eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's been touched upon a couple
Running
of times.
into like Matt Tracker's kids.
And let's not forget Sean Collins, son of Wade,
Yes.
or adopted son of Wade, pals with pen
Or
pals with
clone
Snake
of
Eyes.
adopted son of Wade. I get confused with Sean Collins. I don't know what's going on there ever. I'm so
Just got
confused.
imprinted with Snake Eyes' memories, wasn't it?
Oh my god, it's maximum clonage all over again.
And of course, the mighty Megazord of the GI Joe motor pool would have, I suppose, like a sort of mid-sized aircraft as the head. Put a sort of a junior Hawk in there. Have a tank, and that'd be the sort of the junior Duke's leg, and then a
I'm
boat,
gonna draw
which would be
this,
shipwreck,
and it's
junior
gonna be for the
shipwreck.
fun.
He's even got a feathery.
I'm gonna
little
draw
beard.
this concept.
Do
I
it,
just want to make a
buddy.
note. I'm drawing this for the patrons. I'm like, I've got to do this.
A helicopter, which could be, I don't know,
This is an awesome idea.
Marissa's vehicle, Marissa
Yeah.
Fairborn's vehicle. What's the chest? The chest is like a base unit of some kind. GI Joe HQ.
I might have to
Yeah.
re-listen to this to remember
Like
what
a
you're
nice
suggesting, but I've already got an
mobile
idea.
base.
I
Yeah.
I
trust
think a
your
mobile base
artistic
would be cool.
abilities, Paul, to just come up with something
Thank
even
you,
better
Matt.
than my spitball. But this was my 1995 Blue Sky pitch.
That was your 95.
A live action TV show? Is that too much to ask for?
Ooh.
I mean,
And
famously,
not in the 90s, if you think about it.
Saban
Yeah.
did the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers on a limited budget. The actors were
Yeah.
not
Yeah,
as well
the
paid,
criminally
reused-
so.
and use stock footage to bulk up its runtime. So would you like to see a cheap out GI Joe live action TV show with these kids or teens, late teens? I know I would.
So Saban just committed war crimes as far as television and broadcasting standards and stuff goes, just like Harmony Gold did. And you guys know how I love Harmony Gold. Yeah, I mean,
Just to let the listeners in, he doesn't.
I really, in case you don't understand sarcasm, but firstly, all of the actors in Power Rangers, okay, with the exception of the guys who played Bulk and Skull, who I don't think were safe either, to be fair, but all of them were actually in danger pretty much all the time. There was like no cover for their stunts. There was no like proper rehearsal time or anything. Those guys were always living on the edge. And Saban was just like, I'll just cut this, cut that, cut whatever's. I mean, he messed up Captain Harlock so much that the Americans can't even watch Captain Harlock because of his bullshit, him and Harmony Gold. Anyway, I digress. I think it could be an interesting show. I think the 90s was perfect because we had Buffy. We had, Charmed was coming out. Yes, I know, like, Charmed is very much a girly show, but it was the time for, like, interesting live action stuff. SG-1 would rock up in 98, and I got to say, SG-1 does have a bit of a G.I. Joe-ish vibe to it as well. They're also fighting a snake-headed villain in G.I. Joe. I mean, in SG-1, and it does feel a little bit G.I. Joe. You got, like, a core team that's going from place to place, and they got a general. It's like if they dressed it up as G.I. Joe, it could have actually been. But my future take on what I would have loved to have seen, and it's driven by the toys. Steven said it the other night, but Mega Marines. I would have loved to have seen the G.I. Joe go full tilt into Mega Marine kind of territory. And like I would have played it off as they got like a bunch of Joes got like sort of sucked into. Yes, I've been watching SG-1. Okay, I know. But they get sucked into a portal and they're in another dimension, and now they're involved in a huge battle to save mankind from this intergalactic species of creatures, which could actually be the origin of Cobra Law, like where Cobra Law actually comes from. And they're like the last vet, they're like the bulwark, they're the last like stand between mankind and this alien species. And it would have been interesting to see like new guys kind of join the G.I. Joe team as they run into other humans and other aliens and things like that, forming these the Star Brigade Space Marines kind of vibe. And that's kind of where I would go. And yes, you would the toy potential there would be like, starships and mecha kind of suits, and and it would be dystopian, and it would be edgy because it's the 90s. Everything has to be edgy in the 90s, kind of vibe. And it would have just been high stakes all the time, and it would have been great. It would have been so
You're
great.
reminding me of the Manimals Encounters, because at one point they wanted to include like an egg with a GI Joe figure, and the egg.
I'm wondering what this is about here.
Dude, yeah, you are smoking some of the same juice as Hasbro in the mid-90s, because absolutely
yeah.
they wanted to include monsters with the figures. They were dystopian and teched out. These are sort of the Armor Tech Star Brigade guys, but they'd each come with an egg, and the egg would contain a sculpted monster. And then
it certainly allows you to not have too many accessories.
The Star Brigade guys would have become more like cybernetic. Pictured now, we've got Shockwave, actually. The human gun version of Shockwave. He's just walking around as a human gun. And can you believe this crazy four-armed beast is actually
Snake
Thrasher?
Oh.
Wow.
Okay. Surprisingly not Snake Eyes.
Monster.
Madness. But yeah, like I mean, even that like little rubber toy there that came out of the egg, I mean, it would have like this could have been an interesting play feature. I'm not saying it's the coolest thing, but it would have been an interesting play feature if one or two of the characters had like special clips on them or on their backpacks. And so when you unearth these egg creatures, they had like connection points that could connect to those points on the backpack and on the figure's accessory, thereby sort of creating like a weird armor, like a weird kind of wraparound armor, or like a weird weapon or something like that. That could have been very, very interesting. Really shit for us in the future, because those things would have dissolved because of the rubber they would have to use. But I think it would have been like an interesting play feature. I always loved the Mega Marines Play-Doh thing. I always thought that was such a novel concept.
Yeah, because you didn't have to
had
vacuum it up.
Yeah, that's true. But that said, we played with that stuff outside, and the only thing that sucked about it is how much dirt gets onto Play-Doh. Like, if you don't think there's dirt outside, it will find the Play-Doh. You'll find little stones in the Play-Doh. It's ridiculous. So it had the like opposite effect. Instead of making us go outside and play with our toys, it made us stay inside and play with our toys. But anyway, Space Marines.
Yeah, and Mom loved that.
Mega Marines.
Yeah. I think we were very careful every time we took the Play-Doh out, Rob.
Yeah, it was more like, let's just have fun with the Play-Doh for a couple of minutes rather than having it be part of whatever game we were playing. It wasn't like, okay, now they have the armor on, let's play for the next hour as the stuff kind of breaks off and goes all over your parents' house.
So my friend Dave was such a shit with that, by the way. Because he would never, like, we never used David's Play-Doh, ever. David actually still, like, the last time that I saw those Mega Marines intact, and I was in my early 20s, he still had the containers with the Play-Doh in, but it had like crystallized, like it had like salt crystals and stuff on it. That's how like he never touched it. But all my Play-Doh was used. And
you missed
when we
out,
did play
Paul.
with those,
there was an episode where you were not in attendance, and Rob and I went through some old toys, and we reopened a tub of Mega Marine bio armor after it had been sealed for maybe 20 years. And yes, it was very crystallized. Smells great, though. Oof.
It always smelled delicious. That stuff, I always wanted to eat it.
Fascinating. No, but it's a fascinating thing, right? And
you were used, dude. You were totally the runt kid in your circle.
Oh yeah, no, Dave. Yeah, but I got him back. I used his bicarbonate of soda pill for
tablets.
His Barracuda.
Ooh,
yeah.
You wasted
Oh
that.
well.
Ooh.
So sorry. And I did it in the
Oopsie.
sink. I didn't even have the decency to play with that toy in the bath. I just wanted to see what the effect would be.
Fizz.
Don't tell Dave though. Not because he doesn't listen to this podcast or watch this YouTube show. But don't tell him. I was very well aware of what I was
30
doing.
years
when
later,
I did that.
he's coming for you.
Well, I mean, we still talk. Dude. I was talking to Dave earlier today. We still give each other shit. Anyway, just to add to that, we used to actually put a plastic, like the Toys R Us bags. They were quite biggish. And so we used to put that on the floor before we played with anything that had Play-Doh in it.
Wow,
so
you guys
like,
are really organized.
Wow. Wow.
Dude,
Good
you do
boys.
not want to make a mess in David's house. I mean, he's a Chinese kid,
Tiger Mom.
and
Yeah,
it,
got one
very
of
much
those
so. She'll
back
kill
there.
you. She'll rip your arms off, dude. Like if a house is dirty, she'll rip your arms off. Like for real. Like
Rob, you owe us a concept, boy.
Well, I think, I mean, as I was kind of like looking at back at like how the line was going, like obviously we start off with like, there's a bunch of like, you know, sub teams, Eco Warriors, and as Paul said, the Mega Marines. Obviously Ninja Force was really starting to come up at the time, and Star Brigade. So I think, I mean, yeah, I also kind of thought of like, as long as they, like, as long as we had Joes, that's kind of what I was happy about. You didn't have, like, that's what I kind of don't like about a lot of the concept stuff that we kind of looked at earlier, was we were getting away from like just Joes, you know, like I'd rather have accessory stuff around the Joes so that the toys themselves were still cool. Because all that other stuff almost feels too gimmicky, which I think a lot of other toy lines, and that's why I eventually did lean more towards GI Joe, because they were just less gimmicky. Having said that, I think, yeah, exploring more of Mega Marines and Star Brigade, that probably would have been the direction I would have wanted to go in. Actually take it, because there were beginnings there. I mean, Stephen and I did explore this a little bit, you know, where there was a lore kind of starting to build up around the Star Brigade at the end there, as you kind of like read through the file cards. So they were building to something. So I think if they just explored that more, you could definitely incorporate the Mega Marines into that. So Mega Marines and Star Brigade just take us to space. So unfortunately, yeah, my idea is very similar to Paul's. Yeah, you know, but like
And
actually
similar to what
build
Hasbro
a
will
story
wanting
into
to do.
it.
It
Yeah.
feels like you guys tapped into the general trend. And if you think about pop culture of the time, you said it, Paul, like Stargate came along a few years later. I mean, Star Trek was
Voyager
soaking up
was
a lot
going
of
strong at the time.
Babylon 5.
So sci-fi was definitely the direction that a lot of things were going in the 90s. I think it's also kind of because we're getting to the closer to the year 2000. Like everyone was thinking, like, what is the near future going to be like? Where are we going with all this crazy development of technology at the time as well? You know, going from just using telephone, you know, normal telephones and reading books to having personal computers in your houses, connecting with people across the entire world. So I think science fiction was definitely the direction that I would have taken GI Joe in, but supported better with more lore. You know, to actually like get back to making those connections in the file cards, and hopefully, yeah, a supporting TV show or a comic series. You know, like GI Joe Star Brigade or something like that, where you can kind of just where you have the stories that support it and continues to build that interest in the line. Because I think that's what you know initially made GI Joe Ra so popular, is that there were all these supporting stories. Yes, there was all advertising necessarily, but you know they were actually making an effort to kind of create worlds that you could play with your toys in. And I think like an accompanying animated show would have been really cool. It's nice to kind of get away from like, because obviously, you know, the real world stuff, we love that, but getting away from that like straight up, you know, we're fighting terrorists. It's definitely a
I'm
good
glad you
move,
mentioned that.
You know, to actually go fight actual villains. Obviously, at its core, it doesn't feel like what GI Joe is. You know, like GI Joe is an army team that fights Cobra, but I feel like you could explore other avenues and give them other villains and things to fight and battle against, and you can still do cool stuff. You know.
Yeah.
Like, I think
it's less problematic going full auto on your pulse rifle when you've got an alien to shoot at.
No, exactly.
More so when you're shooting at someone's son or husband.
You know, like there's a real person over there,
a fellow
so
American.
I think we're trying to move away from that, and I think I did appreciate that the direction they're attempting to go in. I mean, like Ninja Force would have been cool to see more of, but like it feels like there's a limit to ninjas. You know,
it is.
You know, like you only have so many people can all kick and punch each other eventually. And I feel like definitely the space angle does give you a lot more angle and stuff to explore and build on. So yeah, that definitely would have been the direction I would have gone in. And if they really wanted to keep going with really realistic toys, I mean, in '94 they did start doing the 30th anniversary GI Joes, so they could still explore very realistic stuff in there as well. But yeah, I really wanted to see what like cool space vehicles and like could have been like.
Are we the outliers, Rob? Wanting to push GI Joe?
Are we the bad guys?
Are we? Are we the rot that killed this line? Took it away from its, where it performs best.
Because I don't think. I mean, I don't think any specific person buying the toys was what was happening. They were reading the room at the time, and there was a general interest in the sort of stuff.
We were still watching tapes of Star Wars on repeat practically throughout the 90s. We were starved of that level of like sci-fi cool because Star Trek was on TV, but the space battles sucked compared to Return of the Jedi. So, for a long time, Star Wars sat king of the hill, even in the absence of a big screen release, as like the gold standard of sci-fi.
Yeah, we were watching movies that are 10, 20 years old, but they still felt great now for us.
But we just wanted to play that in our Joe world. We wanted to use those figures to create the bounty hunters or the Rebel Alliance, fighting a desperate struggle on an ice planet. Like, we used G.I. Joe so much in a sci-fi resetting that
we did.
Blame Hasbro and you two boys for wanting to lean back into that with Star Brigade and Mega Marines. I think we've come full circle.
Yeah,
and also, like, I love what Rob said earlier. Just coming back to some of the things that you mentioned, like how it would have been smart to have GI Joe, and you guys both kind of got there, was having GI Joe point their guns at things that weren't people, and also like that's why I like with the concept that I threw out there, in our play motion when we did in our international backyard where you got Mindbender from the future. Basically giving Snake Eye, I mean, in my mind, that Mindbender is always meant to be like a Mega Marines Mindbender, and in my head, he's a good guy because he's marooned with the GI Joes. So now he's on the other side of this dimensional rift with the Joes, and the only way they can get back is to get the technology to open that. But if they do that, then they'll let all the bad through as well. So they have to like stop the bad before they can open the door. And it's cool that they got somebody as intelligent as Mindbender. But in the beginning, it's an interesting dynamic because they can't trust him because he's nuts and he's a dentist. And they've all watched Lost in Space. So they know better than to trust the doctor. But they have to. You know what I mean? They have to. And like, I love that kind of dynamic, that kind of marooned kind of thing where you got like a specific set of Joes. And then every now and then have a new rift or have some way pull them in, like how Beast Wars did. Beast Wars had a magical way of pulling in a character just into its world that was like another popular Transformer. And so I loved that.
Had that in my head and didn't speak out until you've just reminded me. But another thing that was all the rage in the mid-90s was the burgeoning computer-generated animation. Toy Story was doing it on the big screen, but then on the small screen we had Reboot and we had Beast Wars. Is there scope for a G.I. Joe CG early CG show?
Ooh, they would have to. Ooh, I don't know what that would look like. It might be very weird because
maybe
Beast Wars worked because it
clone?
Wasn't. Yeah,
not human.
Something like that worked. Reboot kind of worked because they weren't humans once again, so you can kind of accept they don't move as well as actual people.
Don't like real people.
Maybe if like suddenly they got maybe if they troned G.I. Joe, they got sucked into a digital world and suddenly like
Joe's really listening now. He's like, say what?
Well, a potential use for CG as the sort of the hot happening like new animation technique to insert into a G.I. Joe show would be to do what they did with BattleTech. Do you guys remember they had like sort of a vision mode or like sort of advanced targeting mode where every mech suddenly like gets removed? Well, we now see a CG sequence where it's set on like a grid and you see computer generated versions of the mechs doing battle. Maybe there's scope for that. Like if I was to do this sort of Power Rangers live action show, that they'd suddenly go into this VR world where we'd see what the Rangers were seeing, what the Joe Rangers were seeing, and it is this kind of VR environment. And that way, you can insert computer models of the mechs.
And I can understand at this point, like our audience is like, wow, so you guys just wanted everything to be like sci-fi and really kid-like, and that's like a huge disconnect from like the type of content you produce, kind of cool stories that you make. But like, as kids, all of this would have been awesome, like that's where our brains were at. Yes, now, I mean, even now, I'd love to see that. But like, it's like, put yourselves back into your kid's shoes. Like, what was fun for you as a kid? Like, what was the kind of stuff that you enjoyed seeing? And for us, that's what it was. It was science fiction, and having that build off of. But the most important thing for me is that it has to be O-rings. It has to build off the stuff that we already owned and kind of expand on that.
No, it's to be like Lego. It must still stay. It must still have its system.
That's the important thing. I mean, it seems like, and that's kind of, I think, where Hasbro was kind of losing the plot, is they're trying so many different things that were not at the core using the O-ring construction. I mean, with the stuff that they actually did manage to put out, like Sergeant Savage. So I think that's kind of where they really lost the plot, where they kind of lost their faith in the O-ring construction, and they just never got it back again. It's unfortunate.
Yeah. Preach, brother. That's actually, I'm very much there with you.
There's some synergy here, or symmetry, or cosmic coincidence, let's call it.
Ooh.
We spoke about the 40th anniversary of the sort of arguably the greatest line of the GI Joe toys, that being 1985. Well, in episode 374, we're talking about the 30th anniversary of GI Joe's demise.
Oh my word! Actually, yeah.
Boom.
Actually,
isn't that crazy?
Oh my word, that's crazy.
Well, like a phoenix from the flames, we are in our imaginations. We're resurrecting GI Joe in 1995 with all these fabulous concepts. Hopefully, something sticks. Hopefully, instead of kids running out into the yard and beating up imaginary putties, they're beating up imaginary manimals.
GI Joes, manimals. Yeah, I'd love to hear what other people think. Like, of 1995, what would you like to have seen from GI Joe?
Topic of what other people think. And I feel like I need to say this quickly before we get there, otherwise we might get it will get lost. I recently, we're talking about CG and CG animation, and I recently watched the new Transformers 1, and the worst part of that movie really is the trailer, because wow, that movie's cool. Transformers 1 is cool. It's got a cool setup for its lore. It's got a cool setup for its universe. The characterization is great. I actually really like how they handled the Transformers and well, the Autobots, or the Cybertronians, should I say. That's much more accurate. Really great, and great messaging in that movie, and it's a pity that more people didn't see it. And I feel bad that I was part of the dissenting opinion, or the dissenting voice of that film, because
you and me, Paul, we were like, this isn't my Transformers.
Yeah, not that we have that much influence that we like convinced like 2 or 3 other people to not watch it.
We made that movie tank, Paul. It's our fault.
Yeah,
we were so vehemently against Transformers 1 that everyone was like,
but
nah,
in our defense, but in our defense, though, that trailer is a piece of shit, and it really does sell the film in the most.
So you're saying, like, in what way?
It could have.
Is it the tone of the movie? I mean,
yes. The trailer, everything, all the one-liners, the way the jokes are used, the way the dialogue is done in the trailer, it's so cheap. But the way it's done in the film, it's not executed like that. It's actually very clever. It's very coherent.
It's much
better.
It does
not speak. It's cool that the film's dialogue is like great for a child to appreciate and understand, but it's not talking down to them. That's what I'm getting at.
But it's good. An adult can enjoy it at the same time.
Yeah, and the film is a little cynical, which I appreciate. It's got a little bit of cynicism in it, which I think is quite honest for kids as well. And just as a grown-up, I mean, it's just, cynicism, you live with it. But anyway, so a big apology. So this is my big apology to everybody, the 5 of you who I may have convinced to not watch this film. But yeah, I have watched it. I've enjoyed it. Steve is very pleased that I've enjoyed it. For many reasons.
Oh, just so.
Yep, that's the one reason. So, but yeah, I just wanted to put that out there, and maybe just also it serves as a reminder to. as we get older, just to be more careful about that. I
Yeah, but I
understand
mean,
we can't be
in the
open-minded to
end-
everything, but yeah.
Yeah, but Paul, in the end, that's not your fault. That is the fault of the marketing. And I think when they market these things, they really don't know what they're doing a lot of the time. Like you decided to give it that second chance and actually go and watch it for yourself and decide for yourself what is going on. It's just
Go
the
and
fault of
watch
the
it.
people.
It came to him via a
On the
stream.
streaming platforms.
We have no excuse.
But I do pay
now.
for the streaming platforms.
Yeah,
so
and you
at least I
chose
supported the film in some
you
way.
picked it out of the many things that were on there. But the thing is, like,
Yes.
trailers are meant to give you an idea of something before you watch it, to make you decide whether you
Take
want to
that,
watch it or not.
Bachelorette.
And unfortunately, they put put off tons of people from ever watching this movie. Because
exactly.
of bad marketing.
And it's so
are
sad
you gonna
because,
do?
like Bumblebee, it's sort of half tanked. It kind of tanked. So I'm a little sad now about that because I would have liked to have seen where they could have taken the story. Because then I would have had two great CG films to celebrate, which one would have been the Ninja Turtles and the other is Transformers 1. But I only could celebrate a TMNT when it came out. But anyway, we were talking about user comments. On the show, we would like to...
Interesting.
We're getting there. Yeah, on the show, we would like to highlight some user comments that pop up on our
that is
YouTube
such a
videos.
sweet suggestion, Paul.
Postbox, the pit makes a surprise return.
But it's more like comments thread, the pit.
Well,
Hey, whatever it is,
the
we are just
postbox
delighted
gets
that
filled with anything.
every single week we have wonderful, wonderful comments. I sometimes have a bit of back and forth on there, but oftentimes I'm just swamped by the generosity of these comments. So let's showcase a few selected comments from the most recent podcasts. Who wants to kick it off? Rob, you are in the top box on the StreamYard today.
So that means I gotta go first. Well, there was a great comment on our was it our most recent one? Fostraw, our hit and run reviews. I believe it's one of the most recent ones, I think.
Oh yeah.
So Troy Smith says, in response to what do those little grip things do? He said, clearly the white tabs on the grip controls are brakes for the missiles. So Fostraw could use his backpack as a jetpack. Every 8-year-old knows that. His suit is obviously bulletproof. With that helmet and visor, he was a good backup pilot. So it sounds like he agrees with a lot of points we made. But yeah,
we
that's
missed
cool
the most important use of those rockets, that it functions as a jetpack. Brilliant.
Yeah. So he could kind of like stop them from leaving, and he would just fly around with it. I suppose it's a reimagining of the jump jet, essentially, kind of like a little bit later in the line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it would suddenly explain the hose. I mean, now he needs a breathing apparatus because he's moving very quickly at high altitudes.
He needs to be able to, it's pretty smart thinking.
It is, yeah, but I mean, if you take out the jetpack thing out of the equation completely, those rockets going off him, they still leave. Never mind the fact that they discharge super hot, rocket boosts. They also leave ignitions, there's emissions and stuff that are left behind by those missiles that are toxic for you. They're bad for you.
Yeah, but that's why.
So the mask also does protect you from breathing that in. Yeah.
Yeah, he's fine. He's totally okay.
Yeah, he's good. They can replace him in 2 years' time when he dies from I don't know, some kind of lymph node corruption. Anyway, were there any others, Rob?
So I have two more. So the next one was from episode 370. We one of our 1985 discussion episodes, and Justin Alkezi9N. I think this is a compliment. He says,
I know
Rob has a cool voice, as if you squeeze your nose and talk. Lol. No disrespect at all. Just Rob has a voice I've never heard. Peace. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'm glad my voice amuses you.
I was wondering if you were going to pick up on that one.
Yeah. I did. I see my name and I'm like, whoa, what is someone saying about me? Okay, that's kind of nice. So yeah. So I suppose if I squeeze my nose even more, I sound more like myself. This is real Rob speaking. Or maybe I just always have a block nose. And the final comment I drew out, which was maybe a cool idea for something in the future. So on episode 372, Stephen and I discussed a Raw issue 315 and GI Joe issue 5. And Eric Harper 5155 said Jinx was outstanding. He agrees with Stephen that silent issue was an absolute blast. And he asks, time for an original Joburg silent play motion story? That sounds
Bad
like a
Luck
cool
Lady
idea.
starts with a silent sequence, but
Yeah, but that's only a sequence, though. We have to do an entire thing where we don't have to hear any of us talking.
Well, watch Bad Luck Lady with the sound turned down. Thanks, Eric.
Bad Luck Lady. Oh yeah, Bad Luck Lady is the silent issue until a point.
Yeah. And speaking of the silent issues, but guys, at some point we're gonna do a nice silent talk about them in a future episode once they've all come out. And we've got
Spirits
our
and
hands on
Roadblock
all
are
of them.
out. We're just waiting for
I think
Duke. And then we
Duke,
can...
and then we're going to crack open it and do like a nice discussion. And it would be nice to have Paul there, so we can have Deadly Pencils talk about how good or bad the penciling on all these things are.
Took them long enough to like consider other characters for silent issues. Just saying.
Yeah, as a concept, I mean, it hasn't often been used as a concept throughout the years. I think there was an X-Men issue where Jean Grey and Emma Frost go into the mind of a character, and it's all silent because of the setting. So I think if it is motivated well enough, the story could be interesting. But if it's just a gimmick, it might not be. But anyway, that is a future episode, 377, I guess. Paul.
That's it. Yes. So I want to finish with my comment on that, then I'm going to mention.
Please do.
I think so many operations in the military happen without talking. That's
so true.
Like,
no one knows what's going on. Just...
If you had to make a realistic military comic, a very talky issue would actually be the exception as opposed to silent issue.
That's
at least that's a thought. That's an opinion.
Okay, so the truest GI Joe comics are the silent ones.
The silent ones, yeah. Because I mean, you're not walking around going dumpty 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 dum. I'm gonna kill some more foes. You're not doing something.
Yeah,
like
no.
The poor letterers are out of a gig.
Yes,
they did realistic war comics.
Yeah,
yeah. I really loved your writing on the silent issue.
Or your lettering, anyway.
Yeah. Okay, so my favorite comment recently is, and because we're kicking off this comments thing, I just want to put this out here now because I want this to be a regular thing. And so
okay,
and I warned Steve that I was going to do this. So basically, every comment that has said Paul is right or I agree with Paul, I love you.
Are you referring to the USS? Your opinions on the USS flag?
And all
loving that people
the
agree
8 other people that tend to agree with me on a regular basis. Thank you. You are seen. You have been noted. And you are appreciated. For appreciating
You're feeding his ego, guys. Stop doing it.
Thank you so much. You're feeding my ego. You're feeding my confirmation bias, which I must say is actually quite necessary. So thank you. But also thank you to all of you guys that have disagreed with me. I have made sure to delete your comments.
No wonder I didn't find anyone disagreeing with you.
Yeah, exactly. No, I kid. I've had a few comments that have challenged me. That I've really appreciated, and there was one or two. There was one recently on the USS flag, and it didn't actually challenge me. It was actually just a great point of view from a user who actually wrote quite a long response, and it was so heartfelt, and it was so
Moonlight, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't Moonlight. It was somebody else. It was so heartfelt at that, and it was so like optimistic, and I think that this. Like what I got from this person was like this person really cared about me as a person, and wasn't trying to convince me to like the flag, but just like in their own way trying to remind me to just enjoy the toy side of things, and that was nice to hear. So I'm not going to say what their name is, and they know who I responded to their comment.
You know who you are.
But those have been some of my favorite comments. Have like been like guys who really love this hobby, who tell us their childhood stories and things like that. So expect a lot of when we do this for me to pull out comments where people are saying like, Paul, you're right. and
Yeah.
and
So
for me to
if
pull out
you want Paul to talk about your comment in a vague way,
tell me
on
I'm
the show,
right.
tell him
me
he's
I'm right.
right, and he will mention. He won't say who you are, but he will mention.
Oh no, I will actually say who you are if you want me to. I will. I'll put your name in gold.
Well, it's a public
but-
comment. Like it's on a
It's
public
already out there.
video. It's like it's there. There's no.
But in seriousness, though,
Yeah.
I do love comments where people like share stories about their childhood. I think that's an amazing thing, and I'm
Those
more
are
than
some of
likely
the
going to pull out
best.
some of those comments.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't highlight them, but like Foster especially, because I think we kind of like say something like every Joe, Stephen says like every Joe is someone's favorite, and it turns out Foster is a lot of people's favorite, and I thought that was really cool to kind of like see that there's
Foster fans come out of the
so
woodwork.
true. It's wonderful, and I think I agree with Paul. Hearing people's stories of like how they played with the toys or just your experiences is always great fun. Don't just stroke our egos, like tell us something cool.
But also don't not stroke our egos. I mean,
well, you can stroke Paul's ego if you like.
I'd like to throw some spotlight onto certain commentators more than plucking out their comments, because someone who has been regularly posting wonderfully written, like multi-paragraph comments is the Lilith 1978.
Yes.
And
they're so engaging.
I thoroughly enjoy reading each and every one. It's not practical to pull one out and sort of do it in a postbox the pit, because they're all so like there's
and they're very related to the video that they're talking about as well.
And
in context, they're much better.
Epically written. I mean, to take the time to not just put up a one-line comment, which we love anyway. I mean, the analytics love it, whether it's one line or 100 lines.
Yeah, we love it when you like, subscribe, and comment.
Lilith has written an essay practically on every recent show, and perhaps not even recent. And Lilith is active on other GI Joe podcasts and channels as well. So like, that's just a lot of care and attention and lovely response from one particular YouTube user. So I'm spotlighting you, but I've just discovered on YouTube Studio, I can see who our most frequent commentators are. Would you guys like to know the top 3 or 4?
Yeah, it's Gaz.
Yes, tell us how Dustin Cornish and Darren Cobb.
Well, the answers might surprise you. Okay, in 3rd position. No, well, let's do top 4. So just fall slightly off the medals table. But
what about top 5? Because it's me.
Let's do top 10. Let's do top 10.
Oh, I can't
top
do
20.
that.
Runner up.
I don't know if my eyes can do that.
Let's do 4. Let's just stick to 4.
Top 4.
All right, 4 it is. In 4th place, Mark van Leeuwen with 355 comments. 355 comments. That's a lot.
That's
holy shorts.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah.
In 3rd place, getting the bronze medal, it's Tetsuo's Wrath.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
With 462 comments.
Incredible.
Wow, Tetsuo only coming in at 3rd there, bud. Rookie numbers, bro.
Silver medal. Silver medal is our man Christian. It's Gaz with
I knew it. I knew it was in the top 3.
504 comments.
Wow. I'm actually surprised Gaz is that high. I thought Tetsuo was higher than Gaz on that respect.
Oh, any guesses who is our gold medal recipient? GI Joburg.
Well, I thought it was Gaz because I
know.
MC DJ
ACDC.
Let's say it in unison. Maybe we'll get it right. MC DJ
ACDC.
It's our buddy Andrew.
So he's an MC, he's a DJ, and he loves ACDC.
Bump.
786 comments. MC's been with us practically since day one, and
13 years now.
I mean, it never fails to comment. I mean, yeah, we've got about 800 videos on GI Joburg.
That's at least one comment on every single.
Pretty much, yeah. Bravo.
But remember, guys, it's not a competition. It's not a competition. Like your level of engagement No. Your level of engagement is how it is.
It's not a competition.
Well, I mean, I know for myself personally, I don't often comment on stuff.
No.
But I think it's great that people do. Like it's nice that people become social. With the content,
no shade.
with
I'm
the
also
stuff
not
that they
an active commentator on things. I prefer to listen to consume content and let other people bubble into the comment section. Some people want the dialogue to keep going. So we're applauding all of you.
And it's amazing. It's great. And even So we will continue to do this. Postbox the Pit is the thing, and this is the beginning of it. 374. We're going to keep going onwards and upwards.
Pit comments.
Yeah,
Onwards.
Comments. We're putting your comments right in our pits. Yeah.
Without further ado, we're gonna keep the thank you train going. The GI Joburg patrons.
We have a hall of fame, a wall of fame. And guys, for as little as $3 a month, you can join us on YouTube members, where you'll get early access to all of our videos, as well as early access, ad-free access to the podcasts. So and Stephen mentioned recently, adverts are getting out of control, and unfortunately, we have to leave monetization on. That money does help us, as well as the fantastic people that support us on Patreon and the memberships. But as a member, we'd love to, for you to be able to listen to us without adverts. So that's what.
And we don't take sponsors. I'm not saying that we're standing on that it's a hill that we're going to die on.
Never
but we
been
don't
sponsored,
take sponsors.
It's you guys that kind of help keep the lights on. So, we'd love to give back to you guys. And Stephen has a fantastic vlog. At some point, Paul and I are probably going to do stuff for it too. It's happening. It's on its way. So as always, love you guys.
Yeah. So just as much, I mean, if you don't want your podcast to sound like my favorite GI Joe reminds me of my favorite cereal. I love the cereal. It's sugar-free. It makes me shit good.
That is my favorite cereal.
This is sponsored
I have at
content.
least one bowl a day.
And while you're at it, you
And
should play
sometimes
Battleships.
supper too.
Battleships is the best game ever.
I take it
Battleships
you've
of
watched
War.
the latest season of Black Mirror, Paul?
I have.
You have. Oof. I now know that I don't have the stomach to watch that show.
Too dystopian, or what? Is it too?
I think in my
Close to home.
old and frail, infirm years, my tastes are I just want to watch happy shit, man,
Nice.
or innocuous shit, like stuff that cuts a little too close to the bone,
Ding
as
dong.
that show does.
Okay.
Yeah, reminds me of a world that I'm not a big fan of.
Don't want to worry about it. Well, fair enough.
Banana
Keep
phone.
watching GI Joe cartoons.
Exactly. Keep watching cartoons from the 1980s. Remind you of a
There we
happy
go.
time. And keep it locked on GI
Ding dong,
Joburg.
ding dong, ding dong.
Yeah.
We'll be
Stay
back
with
this time
Banana
next
phone.
week. Yo,
100%.
Joe.
Ring, ring, ring,
Berg.
ring, ring.